Heya Cryptozens, welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus and we do crypto news analysis nightly at 10 p.m. And keep in mind, none of this should be considered financial advice. And it's Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. Happy Pi Day for everyone who observes that, and also Happy CPI Day for everybody who celebrates that as well. Now, I'm sure, as all my listeners know, recently, three big banks supporting the crypto industry have failed, specifically Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate Bank, and Signature Bank. They've all collapsed. Now, some folks are wondering how American crypto companies are going to manage after losing these banks. Some have said that there's no banks left to support the crypto industry. On Twitter, users started compiling lists of banks that could be viable options for smaller crypto operations in the long run. Now, although the situation involving banks and crypto and stablecoins is uncertain, there are still mainstream options for people who are working in the space. These include the Bank of New York, JP Morgan, Cross River, BCB Group, Customers Bank, DBS OCBC, Mercury Bank, Axos Bank, Swiss banks. According to Reuters, Swiss banks are seeing an uptick in interest from American crypto companies. Signum is one of the more crypto-friendly banks there. And there are still other potential banking solutions out there. Jewel, Ceres, State Street Bank, Goldman, Capital Union, First Digital, others. Jake Travinsky is the Chief Policy Officer at the Blockchain Association. He tweeted that the collapse of SVB, Silvergate, and Signature has created a significant gap in the market for crypto-friendly banking. He added that this provides an opportunity for banks to provide new accounts to crypto firms without incurring the same risks as the three that failed. Overall, while the situation surrounding banks and crypto and stablecoins is fragile, there are still mainstream options for those left working in the space. Michael Barr is the U.S. Federal Reserve's vice chairman in charge of bank supervision and regulation. He is also investigating the sudden collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. He emphasized the need for careful and thorough examination of the bank's regulation and supervision. The Federal Reserve has announced the launch of an investigation in response. The U.S. Federal Reserve has announced the results of the 6-week investigation into Silicon Valley's collapse will be made public by May 1st. That review, described by Fed Chair Jerome Powell as thorough, transparent, and swift, is currently ongoing. Despite also being supervised by the Fed, Silvergate Bank was not mentioned in Barr's statement. In related news, U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged to request that Congress and federal regulators enhance banking regulations. Meanwhile, according to a report by the Journal, the SEC and the DOJ have started their own investigations into the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. This has sparked some interest from the banking industry. The investigations will look into a number of things, including the stock sales made by the bank's CEO and other executives just a few days before the bank failed. Apparently, this will be a key area of focus for the investigations, because media reports suggest that CEO Greg Becker sold $3.6 million worth of company shares just before the bank reported those significant losses that caused it to fail. Regulatory filings indicate that Becker sold over 12,000 shares on February 27th, which was the first time he'd sold SVB shares in over a year. He had filed a trading plan that allowed him to sell the shares in January, and it's important to remember, it's still early. The two investigations may not result in any charges or even allegations. However, it is not unusual for government regulators and prosecutors to initiate investigations when significant companies or institutions fail. I've been getting the emails the last few days. These are emails that are from various crypto exchanges or services I've signed up for at one point or time or another. And they all have the same purpose. They deny exposure to SVB. In fact, many of the big crypto companies are saying that they are not involved with banks like Silicon Valley Bank. Tether was one of the first to say that it was not going to be affected by the banking crisis. Paulo Arduino, Tether's chief technology officer, tweeted on March 12th that Tether has no money in Signature Bank. Signature Bank had just closed on that same day. Tether's USDT is the biggest stablecoin by market cap. At the moment, it's worth around $73 billion. The next biggest stablecoin is USDC, which briefly lost its peg to the US dollar. That's because Circle couldn't get their $3.3 billion out of SVB, so you can understand why places are interested in making sure that their customers are aware that their money is safe. Argo Blockchain is a Bitcoin mining company. They said that they don't have any direct or indirect involvement with SVB or Silvergate Bank. However, one of its subsidiaries does keep some operating funds in cash deposits at Signature. Argo also said that these deposits are secure and they're not in danger, thanks to a decision by the U.S. Treasury and Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to save customer deposits at the bank. Now, other firms such as Animoca Brands, Abra, Alchemy Pay, they said that they are not connected to SVB and Silvergate. Now, BitGo is a crypto custodian. They said that they don't have any assets at SVB and they're not affected by any problems at Silvergate, USDC, or Signature Bank. The CEO of Crypto.com, Chris Marszalek, said that his exchange is not affected by the banking crisis. He tweeted on March 10th and March 12th saying that Crypto.com has nothing to do with Signature, Silvergate, or SVB. Other big exchanges like Gemini and BitMEX have also said that they're not involved with them either. Gemini had a partnership with Signature, but none of the customer funds or stablecoin reserves are at that bank. They're held at other banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and State Street. BitMEX also tweeted that they have no direct connection to Silvergate, SVB, or Signature. Now, Binance and Kraken have partly said that they're not involved with the banks. CZ said Binance has no money at Silvergate. And the former CEO of Kraken, Jesse Powell, said Kraken is not exposed to SVB. But you take these things together, like the fact that crypto is not yet cut off from the banking industry, and the fact that so many organizations are able to say that they're not affected by the current crisis, and I see that as a sign of hope. All is not lost. On Tuesday, the European Parliament approved new rules for managing data. These rules could mean that smart contracts will need to have a reset option. This decision was part of the Data Act, which was introduced by the European Union in 2022 to give people greater control over data collected from smart devices. However, some members of the Web3 community have raised concerns about the implications of these provisions. On Tuesday, 500 EU lawmakers voted to pass the bill while 23 opposed it and 110 abstained. The lead lawmaker said that the new rules would give consumers and businesses more control over the data generated by the connected products. She added that this would empower them to decide how their information should be used. The bill's redraft includes provisions that require smart contracts to have access controls and to protect trade secrets. Additionally, they would need to have functions to stop or reset, which makes them pretty much useless as I see it. Thibault Schreppel is an associate professor at VU Amsterdam University, and he tweeted ahead of the vote that, quote, Article 30, as currently drafted, goes a step too far in addressing the issues raised by immutability. He also said it endangers smart contracts in a way that's unpredictable. Now keep in mind, Schreppel specializes in blockchain legal issues. He believes that the legal text is unclear about who would have the responsibility to hit the kill switch on a smart contract. He also rightly points out that it violates the fundamental principle that automated programs cannot be altered by anyone. The vote now authorizes lawmakers to negotiate with national governments to finalize the law. And frankly, as I see it, whatever they end up doing, if they're requiring a kill switch, then the resulting software is no longer a smart contract, because you can't interfere with smart contracts in that way. So the result can't be a smart contract. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission has appointed Carol House as its new chair of its new Technology Advisory Committee. The CFTC also named Ari Redbord as the vice chair of that committee. On Monday, the CFTC released a list of committee members. They said it was recently formed and that it had been sponsored by Commissioner Christy Goldsmith Romero, who assumed office in March of last year. In a statement, Romero explained that the CFTC requires guidance from technology experts. They're needed to safeguard markets against cyber attacks, promote responsible development of digital assets, and comprehend the consequences of emergent technologies such as artificial intelligence. She said the committee members will provide fundamental knowledge about technology and its intricate impacts on financial markets. Previously, the TAC was sponsored by Brian Quintens. He is a former CFTC commissioner who currently serves as the head of policy at A16Z. Now, if the name Carol House sounds familiar, it was she that assisted in drafting President Joe Biden's executive order on cryptocurrency. Currently, she is an executive in residence at TerraNet Ventures. Ari Redboard, on the other hand, worked at the U.S. Treasury Department before joining his current blockchain analytics firm, TRM Labs. The committee also includes several other representatives from the crypto industry, as well as representatives from traditional industries like IBM and the National Futures Association, who've also joined. Several academic representatives, including Hilary Allen, Jeffrey Zhang, and Daniel Alry, have also been appointed. The committee's first meeting is scheduled for March 22nd, during which it will consider renewing the Cybersecurity Subcommittee, establishing a new subcommittee on digital assets and blockchain technology, and creating a new subcommittee on emerging technologies. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Justice Department is looking into the collapse of the Terra USD stablecoin. Terraform Labs and its CEO, Do Kwon, are already dealing with civil charges from the SEC. The possible criminal charges from the Justice Department could lead to prison time for those involved. That is, if he's ever caught, something that hasn't happened as yet. Sources familiar with the matter told the Journal that the criminal investigation is likely to focus on the same areas as the SEC's civil charges against Terraform Labs and its CEO. Recently, former members of the Terraform Lab team were questioned by the FBI and the Southern District of New York. The investigators are also interested in the connection between Chai and the blockchain created by Terraform Labs to power their stablecoin. The SEC accused Kwon and his team of falsely claiming that Chai was using the Terraform blockchain to settle millions of transactions in order to generate excitement about its capabilities, which were entirely untrue. According to a separate report from Bloomberg News on Monday, U.S. prosecutors are investigating chat group conversations among trading firms including Jump Trading Group, Alameda Research, and Jane Street Group. These chats were reportedly about a possible bailout of Terra USD, but it never came to fruition. Mark Gordon is the governor of Wyoming. He signed a bill to protect the privacy of digital asset owners. This new law prevents the forced disclosure of private keys. This means that no one can be forced to produce or reveal their private key in any legal proceedings, such as civil, criminal, administrative, legislative, or any other types of legal proceedings. This law aims to safeguard the privacy and security of individuals who own digital assets in Wyoming. The law defines a private key as one being held by a person and paired with a unique, publicly available cryptographic data. Additionally, the private key must be associated with an algorithm necessary to carry out an encryption or decryption required to execute a transaction. This is the definition that must be met for a private key to be protected under the law. Once the law goes into effect, courts in Wyoming will not be able to force individuals to provide access to any private keys. This includes private keys that grant access to digital assets, digital identity, or any other interests or rights to which the private key provides access. Now, this law has one exception, which allows individuals to be compelled to disclose the ownership or transfer of crypto during lawful proceedings. As the U.S. Congress grapples with regulating cryptocurrency, there's been an increase in cases where courts force the disclosure of cryptographic private keys. This has caused concern among digital asset owners about the privacy and security of their assets. So what happens is, in many cases, courts force individuals to disclose their private keys as part of discovery or other pretrial motions. This goes against the fundamental design of private keys. Private keys are meant to be private, hence the name. The forced disclosure of private keys compromises the security and privacy of digital assets. And see, the issue is, when a court requests the disclosure of a private key, they get access to the digital assets and any identities that are protected by that key. John Callis is the director of technology projects at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They're a nonprofit that defends digital privacy, free speech, and innovation. Well, he explains that in these cases, the courts don't necessarily want the private key itself. What they want is access to the data that's protected by that key. This distinction is important because the forced disclosure of private keys can compromise the security and privacy of digital assets. Hence the need for this new law in Wyoming that aims to protect individuals from those disclosures. Mary Beth Buchanan is a former federal prosecutor. She provided testimony in support of Wyoming's private key disclosure law. In her testimony, she explained that the court has the power to order the disclosure or accounting of all the digital assets held by an individual. The Blockchain Commons is a nonprofit that advocates for open, interoperable, and secure digital asset infrastructure. They published an essay explaining that U.S. courts are not equipped to handle private keys. According to the essay, court staff lack the necessary experience to protect private keys. This creates a significant risk to the security of private keys, as a single private key may need to pass through multiple hands during a case. U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis is a strong advocate of Bitcoin. She has been pushing for clearer digital asset regulations for the country. She has also emphasized the importance of privacy as a way of life in Wyoming. Senator Chris Rothfuss is a co-chair of the Digital Asset Committee in Wyoming. According to Rothfuss, the bill is designed to provide clarity on the legal status of private keys and how they should be treated by courts. Wyoming is known to have a very crypto-friendly approach to regulating crypto, becoming the first jurisdiction to acknowledge decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, as limited liability business entities in 2021, despite having the smallest population in the United States. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. If you enjoyed tonight's show, then please like, follow, subscribe, leave a rating or review. And in the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow night.